Welcome to Holistic Human Performance Podcast. My name is Gena Bradshaw, where we talk all things holistic health, wellness, spirituality, fitness, meditation, energetics, and so much more to help you become the healthiest version of yourself. Let's dive in. This is not medical advice. This is simply to help you on your journey through health, fitness, and wellness. I hope this helps. You can complement this with anything that you are doing currently in your life. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Holistic Human Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Gena Bradshaw, and today we have a special guest. We have Laura Shockley joining us. She is owner and founder of Point Lookout Yoga and Wellness here on Long Island, and also Joyful Treasures, which we will get into all of the amazing things that she does. So Laura, welcome.
Hi, Gena. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So let's take a really deep dive, because you are the person I wanted to speak to about Ayurvedic medicine and also yoga, and how they're very much interwoven, and this umbrella of wellness and spirituality and how everything is connected. So my question to you first is, how did you even get into yoga? Everyone has this journey, so I'm curious where yours started.
Everyone has their yoga story in this world of what we do. So I would say, going back to my late teens, I just was on this search for something more, and I happened to discover a book, and it was this Buddhist meditation book. And I started studying this book, and it was the first time anything ever made sense to me. And so my entry point to the practice was through meditation from a Buddhist perspective. And then several years later, this thing called yoga started popping up in my world. And it was largely, what we know now is what I know now as the asana practice, the posture practice, and it was popping up. And so I started taking these classes, and I was in law school at the time and very stressed and going through all of those things that a student does. And now I'm on my mat, and not only had my meditation discovery made so much sense to me, but now I'm on this yoga mat, and it's like the first time I had felt so incredibly connected to who I was. And I just felt more at home on that mat than anywhere else. And I kind of couldn't figure it out. I just knew I kept wanting more. So I kind of did my own study of Buddhist meditation, and I was taking what we call the yoga classes, the asana classes, for many years. And I kind of wove in and out. And I say on many times, I felt like the practice saved my life. And I knew very little about it. I just knew how I felt when I was doing it. And I wound up, life happened, and I became a lawyer, and I did a bunch of work in the district attorney's office in Brooklyn. And then I eventually went to a large law firm and became a partner. And basically, I like to say we have these certain points on our journey that are like the Phoenix process, where everything needs to burn itself down so that you can be reborn new. Mm-hmm. And I had my Phoenix process, and I lost, my marriage was ending. My home was destroyed twice, first in Irene and then really destroyed in Sandy. I was homeless. I was really suffering from post-traumatic stress. And I had a very big, a high stress job with a lot of responsibility, and I just couldn't keep it all together, quite honestly. And so I stepped away. I took a position with far less stress at a different firm, a tiny boutique firm. And I started to focus on myself, really, for the first time in probably ever. And this is when, this is after Sandy. So I I took a yoga teacher training, and I was just doing that because I felt like I just want to learn more about this thing that keeps saving me. Like, I feel like I owe it to this thing to learn more. And so I took the teacher training, not thinking I would ever teach, just wanting my own, my own knowledge and experience, something just for me. I wanted
Yeah.
something just for me. And I think it was probably the second day of the training, I just said, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble because I don't know how I cannot do this. Like, I have to do this. And right after that, I took my first trip to India, and it was transformative. And I meditated on the banks of the Ganges River in
Wow.
Varanasi, the holy city. And in that meditation, I saw a vision of the yoga studio. And so I went home, and I was now back in Point Lookout, which is sort of another story, but it was very clear to me that this needed to happen in Point Lookout, which is where I live now, and a place that was very close to my heart. And so 5 months later, I opened Point Lookout Yoga Club. Back then, we called it the
Wow.
club because we wanted people to come, wanted them to come to the club. And it was in a space that was half below and half above ground. People couldn't find it. It was almost like a secret, and it was a big experiment. And I said, well, I'm just going to do this. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I had a really great group of people, and all of our hearts were so deeply invested in this thing that we all loved. And the people just came, and they kept coming. And I said, wow, like, this is a thing. This is real. And so slowly, I started to put more time into cultivating the studio. And we had an opportunity to move into a new space right on Main Street in Point Lookout. And that was in 2019, 4 years later. And we opened up our new space. It was sort of another very big transformative process, not only to take that step, but my mom passed 2 weeks before the space opened. And that was 2019. So 2019, 2020, we all know what happened.
Yeah.
And it was, again, like it was a learning period for me, a relearning about myself and how I defined who I was. And my mom and I were incredibly close. I'm an only child. She was a single mom. So I'll really say that then almost opened the door to Ayurveda for me. I had always heard about it, and I kind of knew generally from my yogic studies, which wasn't that deep in the training that I received, because you don't usually get a very deep training in Ayurveda in those intro trainings. So it started to become clear to me that something was really missing. And I had all these things in place. I was living this lifestyle. I was working towards, really integrating the yogic teachings in my life and in my business, certainly. And when I got to learn more about Ayurveda, I realized that was the piece that was missing, and that you can't fully have one without the other. And that sort of began this new part of my journey that's still ever evolving and growing. For the rest of this lifetime and, the ones to come. So continuing with the story, and I can certainly get into that connection of yoga and Ayurveda, but continuing with the story, in 2020, right at the time of the pandemic, I was opening Joyful Treasures, which is our boutique that works in collaboration with the yoga studio. So we're in this new, beautiful space. We had opened our spa. And then we were expanding right at the outset of the pandemic into our boutique and adding more spa. So we're adding more spa at the time of the pandemic, which seemed very crazy at the time, but I just knew, we're supposed to do this. It was so clear to me what was supposed to happen. And now, so these years later, we're still here, and we've expanded even more. We relocated our yoga studio, and we've expanded our spa to be able to offer Ayurvedic treatments as well, Ayurvedic body treatments, which I also
is phenomenal. Like, what was the one that I received? Because it had to do with the third eye and the hair, right?
So that's the Shirodara. So
Mm,
these treatments are just incredibly sacred. And I like to say, we offer therapeutic massages and we have great massage therapists, and I use that as a part of my wellness protocol. But these Ayurvedic treatments are ancient, and they're using organic oils that are infused with herbs. The herbs are cooked in the oil, and in Ayurveda, the food, the herbs are the medicine.
yep.
So you're getting these treatments with these beautiful pieces of the earth that are then being applied to the body in different ways. So the Shirodara, which you had, is simply magical, and that's a steady stream of oil over the third eye. And it's very grounding, and perhaps we'll get to talk a bit about the doshas. The doshas are the physiological forces that make us up, and one of those
Mm,
forces is movement. It's made of air and ether, and that force gets very easily thrown off balance. So
mm,
think about when it's difficult to focus, when you're
mm,
experiencing a lot of anxiety, when the mood's up and down. That's sort of our forces of movement getting thrown off, right?
mm,
So you think about something like the Shirodara, where you're lying on a comfortable table and you're having this steady stream of herbal oil being applied to the third eye, really meditative, really grounding, really resetting the nervous system. And of course, the herbs that are chosen are all designed to support the nervous system. So that's that
so
Shirodara
good.
treatment, which you had. And then the Abhyanga is a oil treatment applied to the whole body. So
Mm,
then that's another luxurious treatment, really balancing, really grounding. These things are great for any kind of anxiety. They're great for insomnia. They're really great to heal a lot of the trauma that we have collectively experienced over the last several years. I mean, this
mm-hmm.
is just to be honest about coming out of a pandemic, which I see a big shift, and it's very encouraging to me. But we still need to treat ourselves even more so with a level of care that maybe we've not really allowed before.
I agree.
So it's so important, and I know that based on what you do too. And I say it's like we need to re-nurture ourselves and nourish ourselves, and these Ayurvedic treatments are just that. And then if you combine that with an Ayurvedic lifestyle, um, you're really just supporting yourself in so many different ways. And then that with the yoga
Mm.
is what creates the pathway to freedom and liberation.
And a whole new
So,
life.
and a whole new life that's ever evolving.
Hmm.
But I can speak to the way that yoga and Ayurveda work together if you like, because
Yeah,
I
let's
feel
go down
like,
that route.
yeah, I feel like it's just not, we have, and I see it especially in what I do and offering the yoga posture classes, the meditation. People are very familiar in the West with what yoga is. And I think that we're getting more and more familiar in general with Ayurveda, but it's still a little bit of an unknown. I say the word sometimes in the studio, and I do have people that are like, what is that?
I
And
know.
so,
And you wouldn't like, even for myself, when I was doing research for my book, like, and I also grew up in a family where we're Italian, like we would use herbs and things of that nature and home cooked meals. So it made sense to me when I was doing the research of the connection between the two. I'm like, oh, I mean, this is Eastern medicine. Like it's all interwoven, it's all one. You can't have one without the other.
exactly. And that's the key to the whole thing. And it's yoga and Ayurveda, they come out of the Vedas, they come out of these ancient texts that go back thousands and thousands of years. And they were being practiced at the same time. And so the best way it was ever described to me that I now use to describe it to the people that I teach is it's like you have a temple, you have this ancient temple, and that structure itself is sacred. When you go, you could imagine, even it doesn't have to be an ancient temple, it could be a church, it could be another place that gives you that sacred connection. So you have this ancient temple, and the structure itself is sacred. And then you get inside the temple and there's something that you can't see, but you can feel. And that's the spirit. That's the heart of it.
Mm-hmm.
So Ayurveda is the temple. It's the structure. It's
Mm.
this vessel, this body that we have to use to navigate this lifetime. And then the yoga is the spirit. The yoga
Mm.
is the divine spirit. And so within our physical body, we have a divine spirit. So we need to keep the temple operating, functioning. We need it to be clean. We need it to be of a high vibration so that you can practice what it is you're practicing inside to connect with the spirit. So it's the same thing for us, right? Like we want to invite all this stuff in. We want to do all the good things now. We're going to go take our yoga class. We're going to go do some meditation. But we may not even realize that there's this whole other part that has to happen. And we might know that we need to do certain things for diet. Of course, by now we're aware of nutrition generally, and we
Mm-hmm.
know certain foods are going to make us feel good, certain foods are going to make us feel bad. But it's a whole Ayurveda looks to the whole. So it looks to treating both body, mind, and spirit, consciousness, rather than maybe a more Western medical approach that just treats the body or it
Right.
just treats the mind. And I think now it's getting more integrated and more understanding and awareness is coming, but just from a traditional perspective. So in Ayurveda, we're treating all three parts, body, mind, and consciousness, so that then we're able to connect with the divine spirit through the yogic teachings, through the yogic practices. So the Ayurveda is going to support us through mainly lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
as to how to keep our temple well functioning, clean, clear, high vibration,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can then go and do the things that are going to lead us on our path of liberation, which is, what the yoga path is, whichever path of yoga you're walking on. It's a path to liberation.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Now, because I know I have some listeners, right, who are in the Western medical field, they might be nurses, doctors, etc. Did you go to schooling? Like how did that work?
So I did a lot of research on places that offer certifications and trainings. And I will say you have to be so careful these days because it seems like everything is being offered everywhere and
Yeah.
everything is not the same. So I decided on the California College of Ayurveda, which is located in Nevada City, California. And they have such a beautiful, extensive training program. And so there are several parts to the training there. And I had completed in 2021, I completed my Ayurvedic health counselor course, which allows you to see people and treat them on a very general level. And I am now currently in the middle of my clinical Ayurvedic specialist training, which allows me, when I'm completed with that, and then there's 2 big series of internships. So you don't just get released from the program and then you start seeing clients. Then you intern and you're overseen by a practicing doctor or a practicing specialist, as you see patients, a certain number of patients, to be able to complete the whole training. So it's a really extensive process. The whole thing is going to take me doing it as a distance learning student about 4 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a commitment. And but it allows you, the clinical Ayurvedic specialist then allows you to treat people that have Western diagnosed disease. So rather than just being able to see anyone on the surface, I will be able to work with people who have diagnosis such as, cancer, such as heart disease, such as Parkinson's, MS, all the things that I know in my studio I come into contact with every day.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a lovely program. There's programs all around the world, and it's just a matter of researching them, And then the body therapies also, I was able to do my trainings, my Ayurvedic body therapy trainings through the California College of Ayurveda. And then also most recently, I was certified as a Ayurvedic yoga therapist.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so that's a program that they now offer, which allows you to work with clients, and basically you're prescribing them certain of the things from the yogic tradition to bring them into balance. So, if we know that all of us have a very different makeup and a very different constitution, we also all have very different imbalances at any given time. The yogic practice is really meant to be very individualized. So I can prescribe a certain pranayama practice, a certain
Hmm.
asana practice, a certain meditation practice
Hmm.
based on where someone is in terms of their balance or imbalance with their doshas, which is what we work with in Ayurveda. So
That
it's just,
is so
to me,
cool.
it's so fascinating. It's just incredibly fascinating. And the deeper you get into it, you see that it just all makes so much sense.
100%. You're just like, why didn't I know this earlier?
Yeah. Exactly.
That
Exactly.
is
But
so phenomenal.
yeah. Yeah. And
So,
somebody said, I said to someone once, I said, this stuff is like magic. And they said, no, it's one of my teachers said, no, it's science. It's not magic, it's science. And it is.
it
And
is
then
science.
and then science is magical. So it's all
Yeah.
it's all beautiful.
That's awesome. Okay, so I mean, anyone that's listening, you definitely need to go check out Point Lookout Yoga and Wellness. They are phenomenal. Their yoga classes are incredible. You have amazing teachers. They're all so great. I love coming whenever I can get to a class. Um, Now you mentioned also working with those who have diagnoses like cancer, Parkinson's. You guys are very involved with the community and you do a lot of nonprofit work with cancer organizations. So why don't you talk about how you kind of integrate that into, your business?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll start to say, we had always done this work for since the beginning. I mean, to me, this is part of the yogic path. And we recently formed a nonprofit called Joyful Community as well. So that arm is sort of helping us to do the outreach that we've always done. And we've always, especially with the pandemic, we focused on feeding people that were food insufficient. And
Hmm.
we worked with the local food pantries. We worked with the local businesses as well as the community in general too. We think it was, I forget the number exactly now, but we provided 18,000 meals over the course of 3 months just in really the Barrier Beach area to people who needed
Wow,
it. And
that's
that was from
incredible.
beginning to end. Yeah, that was through a great interaction with our civic association here, volunteers locally, restaurants in town who were cooking the food, and the Long Beach Soup Kitchen who helped us coordinate a lot of stuff. So we've always been very geared towards that. And the other special connection we have is with an organization called Mondays at Racine,
Hmm.
which I've known these ladies for many, many years, back to my own lawyer days when I used to go into their salon in Islip. And this is a group of ladies who formed this organization. They did the work for many, many years before they actually turned it into a nonprofit. They were just doing this work where they opened up their salon the first Monday of the month, and they offered free services to anyone who was undergoing cancer treatment. It turned into an HBO documentary that was made on them, and they formed their nonprofit, and we were privileged enough to work with them pre-pandemic on providing yoga for cancer classes, and we had raised some money, and a bunch of our instructors were trained with a yoga for cancer organization to be able to offer these classes free of charge. So with the pandemic, as with many things, that did stop, and we're currently in the process of renewing this commitment to this community that's so dear to us. And so within the next several months, we'll be beginning our Mondays at Racine program again, which we're very excited about. And
That's
this time
awesome.
we'll be able to offer free treatments as well. So they can come into Joyful Treasures and have a facial, a massage, an Ayurvedic treatment like we talked about, an afternoon of meditation and community and yoga. So that's going to be coming soon, and we look forward to working with you on that too.
Yes, I'm very excited to be involved. I mean, I love collaborating and working with other people who truly give back and want to make a difference. And you know me, I am all about the holistic approach, especially if you're going through some type of dis-ease, throughout the body. If you're going through cancer, if you're in survivorship, meditating, exercising, moving your body, breath work, all these things are so important. Herbs, medicinal herbs, like these things are so, I mean, Mother Nature didn't make them for nothing,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, I mean, there's so many things we could expand on, but I definitely want to have you back on the podcast again.
I would love that.
Would you like to leave any words of wisdom for the listeners before we sign off?
I think, I guess if there was one little piece that I could say is to slow down. And it's in the stillness that we're able to listen most to the messages of the heart. And in the environment that we live in, and this fast pace, us being in New York,
Yeah.
this fast pace, it's so necessary to just slow down and take that time to nourish and nurture. And sometimes we feel guilty and we feel like we can't give ourselves that privilege, but that would probably be one of the things that I'd like to leave off on.
I love that. And it was a good reminder for myself to slow down.
For us both.
Yes. So where can people find you?
So we're located in Point Lookout, New York. We have two different ways to reach us. One is through the yoga studio, and that's our website is pointlookoutYogaClub.com. And Joyful Treasures, our boutique and spa, they are both connected and operate and collab with each other. And that's it's at www.joyful-treasures.com. And we're happy to always answer any questions or meet with anyone who wants to talk about how to get started on their yoga or their Ayurvedic journey.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on. Guys, if you like this episode, like it, share it. If you've never been to Point Lookout Yoga and Wellness, please go check it out. If you're in the Long Island area, it's phenomenal. I love them. Their vibe is just so magical in there. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Gena. It was a
I'll
pleasure.
talk to you soon.
Okay, honey.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.